And it is really good timing that you and I are speaking today because, as you point out in your reporting, just a few Met Galas ago, back in 2021, Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez wore a dress that said "Tax the Rich" on the back. I'm sure everyone can remember. It was a very memorable moment on the carpet. So you're actually reporting on her net worth. So first, point blank, is she rich? What does her fortune look like?
Yeah, that's one of the things I wanted to point out is it's really easy to call for taxing the rich. She's not that rich, and that certainly helps. We are estimating that Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez's net worth is about $125,000.
So before we get to what assets make up that $125,000, take us back to the beginning, her life before politics, and what her financial situation looked like in those formative years.
Absolutely. So Ocasio-Cortez was born in New York, and she grew up in, I would say, a working class family. They weren't in poverty. I would say her father was an architect, and her mother was a first generation immigrant who cleaned houses. So definitely firmly working class family there. She went to college in 2007 off to Boston University. And while she was there, her sophomore year, her dad suddenly died of cancer. It was very dramatic and very sudden. And her family really struggled after that. So once her dad passed away, they lost all of that income. He owned a house in just north of New York City and also owned a small apartment in the Bronx. And they had kind of a custody battle over both of those properties. And really, that home in the Bronx, it took 4 years for them to sort that out. That was a very expensive legal process for them. And additionally, they had all these medical bills that had built up while he was being treated for cancer. And so she graduated into a pretty horrendous job market right after the Great Recession, even for college graduates. Was really struggling to find. So she ended up working as a waitress. Her mother took a second job as a bus driver. So they really started out better than they were doing when she graduated college.
Definitely, if we can remember back in 2011, that was a really grim time financially, the Great Recession just about ending there. So, what made her take the leap from graduating college, waiting tables, to then join politics?
So the way she tells it, she was always active in community organizing, but she was really constrained in part because of her, need to work kind of a low-wage jobs in order to support her family. But it was really Bernie Sanders' campaign in 2015, 2016, his first run at the presidency. Remember, Bernie Sanders is an independent senator from Vermont. He's probably the furthest left member of the United States Senate. And he usually caucuses with the Democratic Party, but he self-identifies as a democratic socialist, which is not something that we've seen on the political scene in the United States in many, many decades, at least before 2016. So she worked with his campaign, volunteered for his campaign, was very active in that. And she also got involved in activism in the Dakotas around in Standing Rock, or protests over an oil pipeline there. And so the combination of those two things apparently, again, according to her, inspired her to run for office.
So now let's go to the 2018 midterms. When she was running for office, she was primarying a very seasoned, a top Democrat in the House, Democrat Joe Crowley. She ended up winning in an upset victory there. What did her financial situation look like then?
According to her earliest disclosures that we have access to, she did have some savings there that she was using in part to fund her campaign, but she was making less than $30,000 a year from her restaurant job, her main job. And so she didn't really have a lot to work with. And this is, especially in comparison to somebody like Joe Crowley, who at the time was a 10-term Democratic incumbent, the chair of the Democratic caucus in the House of Representatives, and a very seasoned veteran of the New York politics scene. She was wildly outspent, but in the end actually managed to win the primary, which was a kind of a shock political victory. It was compared to Eric Cantor, was a Republican in 2014 who lost to a sort of unknown Tea Party challenger. It was kind of similar energy there, and it was seen as sort of the rise of a progressive wing of the Democratic Party in the 2018 midterms.
So she was elected before she was sworn in, before that congressional salary kicked in. How much money was in the bank for her?
Her campaign manager said shortly after she actually won her general election, which was not really much of a competition given her extremely blue district in New York City, Her campaign manager said that she had less than $7,000 in savings left, which is not a lot to work with. And she told the New York Times that she was struggling to find an apartment to rent in D.C. in addition to the apartment that she was already living in New York. If you're renting in both cities, that gets very expensive very quickly, and she didn't have much in the way of savings to go off of there.